A very good afternoon to one and all. We're very excited to be here to share with you our project, Marina One in Singapore. We've come a long way from home to Chicago. So this project is very special because it's a collaboration between the governments of Singapore and Malaysia. And because of its significance to showcase a strong bilateral relationship, our brief to the consultant team was just very simple. Build us something that's iconic to be a game changer for the way people live, work, and play. This is a picture of the completed development. We completed it in less than 4 years with a GFA about 3.67 million square feet. We did it in one phase. Located in the heart of the central business district, because of our scale, it allowed us to do something impactful. Right in the heart of the development, we have a green biodiversity garden. And as you can see, the greens, it does draw our occupants and neighboring community within the development to mingle. And we even have city rooms that enable us to have activities, exhibitions for the occupants as well as community and public to interact together. Apart from the green heart, we have communal facilities like the auditorium and the meeting rooms for the public as well as the occupants to make use of. And befitting the location in the central financial district, our brief was also to create prime grade A office buildings. So here you see 2 towers. This is all in about 1.9 million square feet of space. With a triple office volume, it gives you a grand sense of arrival when you reach the office towers. And our signature floor plates, which are 2 high-density floors, that's about 100,000 square feet each. This is probably one of the biggest in Asia for a prime grade A building. You probably see more of them in Americas, but not in Asia. So we had a vision that we wanted Singapore to be a global hub for Asian companies to take headquarters within the development. And we are proud to say that our development has anchored many Fortune 500 companies in the likes of BP, PwC, Prudential, Facebook. These are all our occupants. The 100,000 square feet space has an occupancy load of about 1,000 per floor. And we have 2 of them. And apart from the office, we felt that there was an opportunity for us to inject residential living, to invigorate inner city living. So we have 1,042 apartments with premium finishes as well as facilities. I'll now hand over to Martin, who will do the heavy lifting of the development, like what you have been doing. Okay.
Thank you, Kemmy. Thank you very much. Yeah, as Kemmy just highlighted, we were grateful to receive a brief which simply stated, let's build something iconic. To do something iconic could be easy for an architect, but that's not the way we like to do it. And that's probably also not the reason why we are standing here today and are one of the finalists. So we also took a step back and said, okay, what is a reasonable approach for such a big building in such a dense city like Singapore, with a problematic climate like Singapore has it? We probably have to understand where the project is located. So if you look at that map, who is a little bit familiar with Singapore would know the Marina Bay, and at the top you can also see the slight bow from Marina Bay Sands, which is well known as an icon for Singapore. And Marina One is situated within the so-called extension of the CBD of Singapore. It looks like being the center of gravity within that plan, so it's right in the middle of everything. But if you look at the situation today, or this is actually 2 years ago, you would see that we are sitting at the fringe of the CBD. So we are looking at a situation where we had to design a building that can be the center of the new CBD and fulfills that role, but it also has to fulfill a role on its own. In the first moment, it means we have to create an environment for the people living, working there for the next 10 years, knowing that there will be construction sites around. That's a volume given by URA, Urban Redevelopment Authority in Singapore. They were giving rules, although the client was just saying it's iconic. Yeah, we had to follow a couple of rules: density, uses, height, FSR. When you look at that block, we pretty much came up with the idea, why would we just do a podium and put towers on top? Why not trying to build a center for these towers to allow people to focus on this green heart in the middle, which Kemmy has already shown, which will be the center for that community for the next 10 years, yeah, because all around you will rather focus on construction sites. So we basically punched this hole into the volume, balance the heights so that you can have a view to the sea, that you can have a view to the harbor. And residential part is a little bit lower than the office towers are. But it's not only just a height restriction here. I will come to that in a minute and explain why the heights also do help the environment a little bit. So designed the green heart in the middle, or had the idea of this wonderful biodiversity garden, which also holds the amenities and is a public open park 24/7. Which was shown here as a sanctuary in the city jungle at that point in time during the competition. And it's a multi-story park which starts on level 1, which is connected even to the basement with a big green heart connection down to the UPN, which is an underground pedestrian network. So it's tied into this typical Singaporean pedestrian system. The park then goes 3 levels up, into the Sky Garden, where we have star restaurants, which everybody can visit. We do have the plant level in the middle of the towers, holding another breakout area, which is screened, and the green rooftops. So in the meanwhile, the plants are growing well. They just were brought in the last 12 months. It took us another 3 years to treat the plants, to set up a nursery. The nursery itself for this site was about 23 hectares. So it's quite an effort which the client took in order to guarantee that this green heart works well. The plants are coming from that region. So they weren't imported from America or Africa. So that was quite important. If you think about gray energy and embedded energy, it wouldn't make sense to bring the plants from somewhere else from the globe. So we sourced them from Singapore and Malaysia. The landscape replacement area given eventually with these gardens equals 125% of the site. So that simply means if we had built nothing, you could have had a park of 100% of the site apparently. Now we do have a building which is holding this amount of square meters, and at the same time we are offering more public park to the community as just a site. So it's a big responsibility for the architects. You're building something where 3,000 people will live, could be also 3,500, could be 2,500. Don't take us too precisely the numbers. And 30,000 people will work in that building. So we are building a piece of a city, yeah, and I'm coming from Germany, so compared to Germany, that could already be a small city, yeah? So we are housing an entire city in there. So that's something which is important for the architecture and for the considerations when you start to work on that. As a result, we also provided 170% of community area compared to the size of the site. So again, we were trying to do more for the public than just offering an open space. We are offering public accessible event spaces and terraces and so on for the public, which are greater than the site itself. How did we arrive there? One could now say, okay, that's super nice. You're talking a lot about the approach and how you would like to come up with greater ideas than just doing decoration. To us, it's really, really important that design is more than just having an idea, doing a nice shape and decorating a building. It's not about just doing a facade, it's about understanding what is right to do. I don't have to explain that. Some of these numbers you know well. Some of these numbers even come from the CTBUH. But we all know that when you talk about the areas of that Earth where the strongest population growth is happening, we are talking about Asia. And if we are talking about population and a sustainable way to build buildings within these areas, we are talking about high-rises. When we come to high-rises, and we believe that high-rises are a key technology to be sustainable within these regions, We have to design a high-rise which is sustainable in itself. So what's the key factor for that? A key factor would simply be mixed use. If you're looking at a CBD, a typical CBD around the world, one of the main mistakes in the past has been that people just were doing commercial buildings or just residential buildings at the fringe, yeah, and didn't mix that up. So in the meanwhile, this is different, and for Marina One, it's definitely different because the client asked for mixed use, but also the URA. So the base setting was already quite sustainable. Next point would be that we are after compact design. You could do whatever design you want, but if you think about energy, if you think about the use of space, it should be compact. You can see that little graphic at the at the bottom right corner, where we compared the normal villages, compared them with the shop houses in Singapore, which originally were on that land, and then what the high-rise actually can do. And it's just 1/16 of the area which we are using, which is reasonably good. But it's also about the climate. So when we talk about Singapore, we have to recognize that we do have a different climate to America or to Europe and so on. So sustainable building is not right away a building with a double skin facade, natural ventilation all around and so on, because for Singapore, this rather doesn't make sense for the office portion at least. For the residential part, it definitely makes sense to allow for natural ventilation. So it's about a reasonable consideration of climatic conditions and coming up with the right solution to address that in order to minimize energy usage. It's also about the green. The green is an integral part of that energy system. So it's not just about providing gardens. It's about providing biodiversity. It's about providing gardens that also cool the environment. So we did quite intensive testing and simulations together with the engineers in order to create this inner shape in such a way that we enhance air movement. We all know that with high-rises, usually people would tend to say, let's be careful, let's avoid downdraft, let's not have turbulences around the building, yeah? But in Singapore, it's a totally different setting. And that if you can imagine, to create this big bowl could be problematic if you don't take care for air movement. You would just create a big bowl which is getting humid, super warm, sticky, whatsoever. However, Kemmy would know from being there, and we are also glad that it is the case, all the simulations led into the right direction. Today, within that green heart, it's really true that planting makes it feel up to 20% cooler. So we calculated that, we simulated that, and the simple reason for this effect is that we cutted a lot of slots in the building, that we did allow the air to get through from all the main wind directions at every time in the year. And in addition to that, we are using the downdraft, the minimal downdraft along the building, and that's even enhanced by the higher side of that louver bowl, which I explained earlier, and the lower side. So the building is heating up at the top. It's relatively warmer air is going up within that atrium, and by doing so, the air is getting sucked in through the sky gardens, crossing the planting, and a little bit of evaporation of the planting is helping to cool down the air. It's a minimal effect, but the minimal effect is leading to this temperature difference and is leading to an environment which really, really is comfortable for people to be there, to live there, and to use that garden. So having said that, it simply means the shape we have been looking at, which we can see here as well, is not just a shape on its own, it's a shape which has been engineered. That's the same for the residential facade. These boxes do provide privacy, they do provide rain protection partly, they do provide some protection against sun. That's the same for the louver design. So one may wonder why somebody putting 35 kilometers of louvers all around the building. That's simply in order to cut down the energy consumption by 15% right away. An external sun shading system is still the best way to reduce heat gain, and by doing so to reduce energy demands for air conditioning. So we all know that nonetheless most of the buildings are just glass boxes. So we were fighting hard, and we are grateful that the client eventually allowed for that, to have these external plates which are up to 2 meters deep in order to cut off the relatively steep sun in Singapore. So all of that is leading into a green building concept, was part of a green building concept, which is a holistic concept. This was finally then, sorry for that, which finally was rated LEED Platinum and Green Mark Platinum, which is a Singaporean rating system for green building. To us, it's important to have this plug simply because it's giving evidence that we reached the goals. However, we believe it's not really necessary to get this. It's just for marketing probably really good. So whatever we see on the building, whatever we see on the photographs is therefore explainable. It's not just there for its own, it's part of an integral building system. Like the plants you can see here, like the louvers of the bowl, like the vertical louvers to the externalized fire stairs. By doing so, we didn't need to pressurize them. We could just use the natural airflow. The louvers, the louvered boxes around the balconies are doing a sun shading job. The louvers, which I explained intensively already, are doing a job. So the garden in between is helping to cool down the atrium. So whatever you see here is of course also designed with an aspect of aesthetics, but it's doing a job on the building. And that's something we are proud of. And may I have the chance to show a little video to give you a three-dimensional impression of the building and the garden, which is still growing. It will take another 5 years until we reach the actual state of the garden which we envisaged. That's simply the case because you cannot bring in 20-meter high trees, but they will grow up to that. So we have catered for the soil, for the amount of soil, for all the irrigation. We are harvesting the rainwater in order not to use any potable water for the plants. And we think it's a good concept to add to the city space, and to provide something more than just a building for the users and the residents, but also a building for the people living around that building. Thank you very much.